We're really excited to have you guys here this evening, so thanks for joining us. We're hoping to provide you all with some valuable resources tonight on building your own career, from finances to networking to securing jobs and taking care of yourself. We'll be asking all of our panelists how they found their way in the entertainment industry. So we've had a lot of fantastic questions submitted to us over the past couple of weeks. But please feel free to post in the chat if you have any questions that haven't been answered, and we'll try to get to them if time permits. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the event. That way, in case you're called upon to answer a question, we'll unmute you. I'd also like to thank Carrie and the SoundGirls community for having us on the platform tonight. And personally speaking, SoundGirls has done a lot for me in my career, and I'm really excited to be able to give back tonight. So without any further ado, let's get started. So I'm Laura Moeller. I'm one of your co-hosts this evening. I use she, her pronouns. I co-head the Pittsburgh chapter, and I've been a freelancer in the greater Pittsburgh area for about 4 years now. My main gig is running live sound for various companies and venues in and around the city. I've worked in corporate audio, theater, concert sound. I've also done a little bit of lighting design here and there. And I'm a proud member of IATSE Local 3. Also went to school for commercial music technology at California University of Pennsylvania, which is a mouthful. And I'm excited to help moderate tonight because I'm really looking forward to hear what all of our panelists have to say. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our other co-host, Carolyn, for her to introduce herself to you guys.
Yeah, so just a brief intro into who I am. I am a touring front of house engineer and tour manager and flautist as well. I'm the co-chapter head of the Pittsburgh SoundGirls chapter. And I just do a lot of freelance work with different bands, different production companies, A1, A2, front of house and monitors. Yeah, so we're gonna just ask everyone, all of our panelists here, who they are, as well as what kind of work they do. If you do like 1099 freelance work, if you also have a full-time job, if you could just explain a little bit about that. So I guess we can start with Deb.
Hi, I am probably your oldest panel member here. I'm not sure. I'm 51. I started in lighting design and technical direction, and really didn't have a lot of direction when I started, but I've been a member of IATSE Local 3 for 30 years. I got a Master's of Arts degree in production and scholarship from University of Pittsburgh in 1994, and worked the Shakespeare Festival for years. I've taught as an adjunct at Seton Hill, as a guest at Robert Morris and Pitt, and most recently for 4 years as full-time professor at Cal U, which I left in 2019. This is really a long history. It's really good to see so many young faces here. I have a lot in the back of my head right now. When I started with our Local 3 in Pittsburgh, I was one of 8 women out of maybe 200 people on the list. And most of us came in just as a result of a small theater negotiating a contract where we had to be given an application. So we were a really rare thing back then. And so those are the kinds of questions I'm better at answering as far as personal experience and stuff. As far as direction, I didn't really have much direction or mentoring when I was younger. So I'm more of a case study on what not to do. And I think I should just let it pass to the next person because I'm going to go on and on. That people who are my students here or were my students understand that I tend to run on. So it's nice to see you all.
Cool, thank you. Devyn, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Devyn. I own my own sound company. It goes by Live Audio Dev LLC. I've had my own company for almost 2 years now. I've been live sound engineering for 3 years. I went to college, Ramapo College of New Jersey, where I was introduced to the whole actually engineering thing in general. I had no idea engineering was even a thing back when I was in high school. And, I met a really great professor who basically took me in as his mentee and just showed me everything about live sound engineering. And I fell in love. I quickly then interned with his company in Brooklyn. They primarily do a lot of New York Fashion Week shows. So I've been a part of New York Fashion Week. I was part of a concert series that ran every summer in Brooklyn. Of course, not this summer, where we did stuff with a lot of NPR Tiny Desk people. So I've done Corey Henry and the Funk Apostles, Tank and the Bangas, Phony People. I've done stuff like musicals for schools, for middle schools, for high schools, things like that. And yeah, just found myself doing my own thing because, I wasn't really getting the experience I wanted, kind of got stuck being just like the A2 when I really wanted to be, on the board and doing the cool stuff, not just running cable. So I just bought all my stuff and I just dove in, and we're here now 2 years later.
Very cool. Liz, if you could introduce yourself, please.
I know my name says Elizabeth Andrews. I do go by Liz. I use she, her, they, them, and he, him pronouns, depending on the day. Today is a she, her day. I'm an entertainment electrician. I currently work full-time as the assistant master electrician of Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center. So that's a W-2, but I do take freelance work with whoever will hire me in Pittsburgh for whatever reasons, such as working with CLO. I work in the cabaret a lot. I work out, and I'm often the assistant lighting designer for a lot of picked shows, Pittsburgh Classical Theater. So, and just in general, a general electrician. I'm a lighting nerd and have been.
Lighting nerds are welcome here. Cool, thank you. And Angela, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Angela Baughman. I'm a sound designer primarily. My dad's an engineer, so I started following him around when I was in high school. And I went to Berklee College of Music and studied studio recording there, music production and engineering. And then when I left, I sort of accidentally landed in theater and loved it. So I mostly do that now. I also do a fair amount of live engineering. I work regularly at Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, and just, whoever calls me, because I'm a freelancer. That's how we do it. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Cool. So next question. We got quite a few questions about just how to start out from people who are, either in school or they're working a full-time job right now and they're interested in how they can transition into freelancing and doing different types of work. So we're just asking if you have any types of advice on how to make a smooth transition or how to start out freelancing at all from any aspect. If anyone has something to say about that, feel free.
I mean, I can start if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So Deborra Peelor, I forgot to mention, yes, I went to California University of Pennsylvania, that whole mouthful. And Deborra Peelor was actually my mentor, and she got me on the IATSE list for just taking any freelance calls that they had for overhires. And that's how I got to at least the introduction into Pittsburgh. Since I had only recently transferred here, I was going to school full-time. Sorry, it's all the memories coming back. I was going to school full-time for theater technology, theater entertainment technology, and as well as for engineering technology. So there wasn't a lot of free time to kind of meet in the middle about that, but there were quite a few people such as Adam Long with Integrated Theater Systems and Jonathan Bucci, who also just were like, hey, I have this call. I was in Cal U. Deb says that you know these things, so would you like to come on this call? So a lot of it was networking, as well as knowing what I can and cannot take, because I was that person who lost sleep taking jobs because I wanted the experience, and then sometimes my grade would suffer for it. Not in Deb's class though. God forbid. No.
I guess so. I'll speak to it. Basically, a lot of what Liz said. Networking is a huge thing. Like I had mentioned, like I got into sound engineering and I got into a lot of the shows that I did because of the professor I had met. And just showing my interest, that's what really got him, is from the rest of the students that were in the class, is that I showed him a lot of interest and that I was really eager to learn. So I feel like as long as you show that to some of the people like Deb who have been around in the game for a really long time, if you show that you want to learn and you're eager to learn and you show your energy, that goes miles. And I still work at TD Bank. I'm a part-time teller there, and I just know that first of all, just know that you're not going to be there forever. As long as you try or lighting people, just keep on applying, keep on trying to meet different people who are going to bring you in and bring you under their wing. Just don't be afraid to put yourself out there, is pretty much my advice to trying to get out of a job into freelancing full-time, or into your gig full-time.
I think too, when you're very first starting, it's helpful to just make stuff with your friends and find really small companies who are doing really cool things, because those cool things are great portfolio showcases. And also if people are coming out to see them, then that's getting your name and the word out there too. And everyone you work with is, I'm guaranteeing you, working on something else. So that's sort of how you end up like sort of traversing that scene, is those people who like working with you will then call you later for something else. And, as their careers grow, yours will too. So.
I can speak to that a little bit. Even, going through this when it was really rare for women to be working in lighting or sound technology, back, 20, 30 years ago. It was crazy because I didn't have to send out resumes. Once people worked with you, word got around and you'd get a job, another job, and lead to another job because of the people you worked with. And now I get so many calls, even working at Cal, I wasn't looking for a job teaching. Even working at Seton Hill, people were like, hey, would you come do a design? Would you work with students? Would you teach a class? And the thing, in retrospect, looking back at that, it was great. It was great for me because I had a lack of focus in terms of everything else going on in my life. And I kind of rode that wave for a while, but it's also good to have your own goals. I didn't have a set path or goal for things because I didn't think that was something attainable. I kept doing things as they came to me, but it didn't occur to me to reach for them before they came to me. And you guys are a different generation. So don't get so caught up in what people are offering you and throwing at you that you forget to make choices about what you want to do. And don't be so grateful to be doing work that you love that you don't ask for what you're worth and get paid for what you do. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions we got, we had one that was like multi-part here. So we're talking a little bit about what Carolyn and I were calling soft skills, which is like communication, being organized, being professional, just general things that you can do to make yourself a little more marketable and to kind of jump on that. So what do you think is like, what are some key soft skills that are necessary in order to make it as a freelancer in the entertainment industry?
I think I'll start. because what I learned of being a live sound engineer is to remain super level-headed while you're doing these gigs, because things can go wrong so fast. You're working with different people. You may know your team, you may know your staff, but the artists that you're working with could, have a little attitude, or, the whole artist thing. So, remaining like cool, calm, and collected is what I always say is definitely a soft skill that I think every live sound engineer should have, because once you start getting flustered and heated in the moment, that's when mistakes start to happen, stuff like that. So I think that's really my number one biggest soft skill to have as a live sound engineer, just so that the show goes right, just for your sake, that the show goes right. Another one I had thought about was communication. Of course, communication with your team and whoever you're working with is a huge one, because like I said, same thing, like something could go wrong, wires could get crossed, or, stuff like that could happen at any point in time if you're not communicating correctly, if you don't have an input list or something like that. Like all those little things are, organization. That's another big one, like just being organized, like sure the cables are laid out just neatly so that in case there is an issue, you're not getting signal to one mic, you know exactly where everything is going, and there's not like you have to sort through all these laid out cables now, so basically that's it: staying cool, calm, collected, communication, and organization. Definitely my top 3 soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually agree. Going on communication, something that I've learned just as an assistant, to almost pay attention to the conversations happening around you, like as often as you can. The amount of notes that I had taken that have not been my designer's notes have been coming from the TD or coming from the director, from just side conversations that they were noticing, like, oh, that light is kind of causing this issue, like, oh, that cable kind of is causing this issue and is visible to the audience, like we kind of need to keep track of that. Is just notes that I've learned to kind of, oh, okay, that's an LX note going to be in like 2 days. So let's solve this issue now before we get to that point. And then when it comes to also agreed with the organization, this is again, just as a hands-on technician, label everything. Label your ins, label your outputs, label everything you have, especially when it comes to data, when it comes to power. God forbid, and I've done this once, and I apologize to every sound person who is possibly on this, but I've done this once where I've plugged a set of power that only had Edison into the same thing that the speaker was in. And I am so sorry in advance, because the amount of feedback that happened when they turned on that, I'm so sorry. And I've learned, label all my power all the time, no matter what it's coming from. It could be even coming from the distro, doesn't matter, label it anyway. Because when you turn any breaker on, when you are testing anything, you want to know exactly what you're turning on, because God forbid somebody who didn't know what that was for was like, let me charge my phone here and I'll unplug this and plug in my, I know it sounds crazy, but it's happened. Like people are like, that looks like that's not really necessary, so let me just use that real quick. So it's really nice to be able to, when you do that and your entire team, like I'm a paperwork freak, like I live and breathe paperwork. So I actually end up handing that out, not just to my team, but to anybody who I have the email for whatever production I'm on, so that they have access to what lighting or what carpentry, because I also do carpentry sometimes, to what we've done and to where it is in the venue that we're going to be using, if we have enough forethought to even have any of that, so that everybody is on the same page of, hey, this is being used. Okay, can't use that. Need 100-foot cable extra to do this now. Just kind of going along those lines.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sorry,
Sorry,
Angela, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, okay. I was just going to throw into the mix. I absolutely 100% or more agree with the cool-headed thing, and like staying calm is so important, and just being nice. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody wants to work with someone who's nice, but also I would add to that, troubleshooting, I think, is like, no matter what you're doing, like supremely helpful. And that's something that's like really concrete that you can learn, but also has this element of being a little bit fluid. And so I would just throw that in there too.
Yeah, so myself as a freelancer, like in addition to all the skills I need on the job, I find that I'm spending so much time communicating and doing other stuff off the job, coordinating my schedule, sending and like receiving input lists and stage plots and stuff like that for gigs 2 weeks away when I'm like on a gig mixing, in the moment. So what are some tips or like tools or tricks that you've picked up that have helped you to deal with all of that extra stuff, besides your actual job? So I personally like I say this like all the time, but email folders, this is such a small thing, but it's one thing that like changed my life is like organizing all of my different gigs and different companies that I work for and all that stuff into different email folders. Because otherwise, I'm like, I've just found that I was constantly scrolling through Gmail, like trying to find emails for this gig. And they're like, oh, well, advancing different tours. And they're like, oh, I sent you, the input list a week ago. And it's like, in order to keep track of like different venues and different tours, different artists, like I always have to organize. I have a million folders in my Gmail.
I'm with you on that. I have an old email address that sounds very unprofessional because it was when the internet first was offering email in like 94, I guess. And so I have a folder for Carolyn for every show I did for like 30 years has a named folder because it was before you had Google cloud storage, before it's a Hotmail account. I mean, now there's so many ways to organize your stuff, but I still do that. I have a Gmail account now, which you guys have, but I mean, my old Pookie Baloo 2 MSN account, which was a children's story that my son had for Baloo from the Jungle Book, which sounds like a porn email, has maybe, it does, but it has like 30 folders of, photographs and drawings and email conversations and chains from shows that I did years and years ago. And it is really valuable to, organize your email on top of whatever, because some people use Dropbox, some people use Google folders. And if you have a place that all that stuff can kind of be under your email folder umbrella, and then you can go to those other things, it helps you stay organized. I agree. You made me smile when you said that.
I would also,
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, going off of that, so whenever you have to save a file, normally you have to resave it over and over and over again, no matter if it's a sound or lighting or drafting or whatever. Put the date on it and the time if you can. I've only figured this out last year, and it is, oh my God, instead of doing like P1, P2, part 3, part 4, oh my God, it's just putting the date and the time like was a game changer on all drafting, on all my files, on even EOS files. We do it now, and we put them in a little folder with the show name, and then we drop down and we're like, oh, this was this date and this was this time. Oh, that wasn't saved after that run. Okay, guess we have to do those notes again, like that kind of thing. And then a tool, just like something that I really wish I had known to have, and I didn't know this until right before March. Those laser tape measures. Oh my God, those are amazing. And I haven't known this. I've been doing this for 4 years, 5 years, and I didn't know just how useful an electronic little laser pointer that measures the distance between you and whatever the heck you're looking around. Amazing. Oh my God, so great.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I didn't know about that laser thing, by the way. That's new. So I'm definitely gonna look into that after this. But for me, what I realized is that I love to sleep. But I realized that, waking up maybe 20 minutes earlier to organize my email, put them in the folder, just like you had mentioned. And, because I deal with my own sound company, sending out invoices, making those invoices up, just waking up at least 20 minutes earlier and sitting down at my desk in front of my computer just to get that organization out the way so that I'm not later on in the day, like, oh, I forgot to send out this. I have to make sure I send it out later or something like that. I definitely implemented that into my my routine now, just making sure that I wake up at least 20 minutes before, everything starts, just so I can have that time to get all of that organizing out the way so that I'm not scrambling.
Okay, anybody else have anything to add to that? Okay. So to add on to that, we had a guest ask, how do you continue to build your skills while you're working? Like, do you still take classes? Do you do anything to like further your education, like while you're also trying to hold down all of these jobs?
Yes. Your best skill is your ability to learn new skills, because there's always going to be another lighting board, another sound board, another piece of technology that you never even imagined. Conferences, magazines, or just, a willingness to open up a manual if you're handed something new. It's constantly changing. So it's not, sometimes it's not what you know, it's how you learn. Carolyn, after you graduated, I took 5 music recording technology classes, because when I had sound design in the 90s, it was 4-track reel to reel. So I took all of Greg's classes afterwards. So still learning. Sometimes it's hard to decide what new technology to devote your time to learn, and you have to pretty much take it as it comes, as you need it, because there's so much out there. That's the hard thing, is how can I use my time? So I guess.
Yeah, I definitely find that part of what I love about what I do is I often end up with a variety of different kinds of gigs, and then those sometimes necessitate me learning something new to get it right. And so, new plugins, new software, all that kind of stuff. But I do have to say that I'm a bit of a nerd and love the Audio Engineering Society convention. I've been doing that as often as I can, as many years as I've been able to. And I think it's really fun, and you get to learn stuff. And when it's in real life, meet other engineers, and I enjoy it a lot. So
Going off of that, I really, really love USITT and LDI. Adore both of those conventions. They are amazing. I always love the panels. And usually when you are in a panel, they always give you more resources to expand upon what you just learned. And then sometimes you can even sign up ahead of time or pay for an extra class. I took a rigging class last time, and as someone who originally didn't know as much rigging as I would have liked, I'm really glad I did, because it opened up this whole new world of possibilities into the world of like rigging and truss, and just in general, God, it's so many avenues were opened, and so many people I met who are like, hey, you don't know this, I'll teach you this. Okay, cool. Sure. But also taking classes when they're available. And then in some cases, when I'm not doing a union call, if I'm just working at my full-time job and another team needs help, that's a learning experience for me, because I usually don't know what the heck I'm doing. And I'm just like, cool, tell me what you want me to do. I do things.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic. I mean, I've watched like 8,000 webinars. It's pretty cool that, like these really talented engineers who are usually out, working nonstop are able to take the time to do webinars for free. That's so awesome. So definitely, take advantage of that if you have the time. So the next thing we want to talk about, we want to go into networking because, I mean, as you guys have mentioned, that's one of the crucial parts of being a freelancer. And so I've found from, working all different types of gigs, whether you like it or not, you build up a reputation. We've all heard good and bad things about other engineers and other techs, I'm sure. So do you guys have any tips for building a reputation and making sure it's a good one?
Yeah, so I wanted to get back to what Angela had said before. Being nice definitely is a huge one. Like, just be nice to work with, and just don't give people a hard time. Don't, like, if you know something that an artist may not know, or whoever you're working with may not know, don't try to do the whole, like, put them down for not knowing what they don't know. Teach them, and be teachable as well. Like, don't try to resist when someone wants to teach you something, even if you don't like the way they do something, because I've met people who have done one thing 10 different ways. Just be open about that. And for me, owning my own sound company, I also am very prompt. Like, I make sure along in those 20 minutes that I wake up early to organize everything, I make sure I answer everyone on time. I don't leave anyone, and if I do leave somebody's email for, like, unanswered for 2 days, I apologize. And yeah, and then I also sell cables, so that's another thing too. A part of my reputation is that I always ask people, like, did you get the cables? How are they? Let me know if they ever crap out on you. I have a lifetime warranty, so just send them back. I'll repair them. So yeah, so just those things in general. Just don't be a jerk. Really is the main thing of building a great reputation.
Yeah,
Anyone
and be
else?
reliable. If people know when they call you to do something, you'll show up and do it. Like that, it's so simple, but it means a lot. And I think a sort of sometimes overlooked thing about networking is networking with other engineers, and actually I should also say that when I got to Berkeley, one of the first things that somebody in an orientation said that stuck with me was like, in college, you guys aren't here. Yeah, everyone's talking about networking, but you're not here to network. You're here to learn and make friends. Like, just make friends. And I sort of carry that attitude a little bit with me always. And I think, if you make friends with other people who are doing what you do, then when they need a hand, they'll call you. Or if they're not able to make the gig, then they'll be like, oh, but I can recommend someone who can, like, call this person. I mean, the reason I'm sitting here right now is because Brando suggested to you that I do this. And that was because I met him on a gig, and we have since traded off work. So I actually have gotten a lot of work that way, just from sharing work with other people.
I almost want to say, with building a name of yourself, remembering other people's names is a big one. When you remember, and specifically the name they prefer to go by, that's a big one. If you remember somebody's nickname that they are called when they're on a production or on crew, you're going to get a lot more people talking to you and asking you questions and just wanting to know who you are as well, because you took the time to just remember who they are.
I have a lot of trouble remembering names. When I'm doing monitors, I write the band member's name underneath the instrument, so it's on my board, so that way I will always know who it is and it sticks with me. It's just like a small thing, but it helps.
Same.
Also,
yeah, it's like, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, also with networking, for me especially, business cards. I always make sure I have business cards on me, because I have my own sound company, so I always have to make sure I have those, because if I'm ever out on the street, because I just talk about what I do to people, because that's how you're gonna get gigs. So I just make sure, if I'm talking to someone, oh, do you have a business card? I always make sure that I have that on handy, because it's very important. It's so unprofessional to me to like oh, you could just take down my phone number. Like, no, people like that business card exchange. So that's just one last thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, going off of what Devyn was saying, like, talking to people is such a crucial part of it. And like to give a personal story, I wouldn't have gotten my first internship if I wouldn't have talked to some guy that I met at a gas station about live sound. And he had just come up and talked to me, and I was like, yeah, that's what I do. I'm going to school for it. And he was like, well, that's cool because I'm a live sound engineer. Here's my card. You want an internship? So you never know. Like, you just talk to everybody you meet about it. Tell them what you do. Like, people, regardless of whether they know what it is, they're still interested to hear about it. So, do you guys use any sort of social media in marketing your businesses?
Yes, Instagram is queen for me right now because that's how I get all my shows. I put everything on there. I put pictures, videos of my previous shows. I put up my wires. I put up things, how to make wires, everything I've gotten from Instagram, all my shows. And not just that, because also when I go to shows, I also network there and I get shows from there. But Instagram is huge for me. Like I said, I had started selling cables during this pandemic, which is actually how I know Carolyn, by the way. Cables for me. But all my customers came from Instagram. I signed up for eBay and all that other stuff. I put my cables out on there, and no, all my customers have still come from Instagram. So yeah, Instagram is really big one for me.
Anyone else?
That's amazing. I didn't know you could sell stuff like that on Instagram. Cables are something that I would not have expected. That's really cool. I will say that I really don't do much social media. I mean, I exist on social media, but I'm not really very active. I am lucky that I have, when I'm working on a show, often I'll get tagged in stuff when other people post things, but I haven't really done very much with it. And I'm doing okay anyway. I don't know whether I would be getting more gigs if I was more active or not, but it doesn't seem to be a make or break thing. So
do you use anything like LinkedIn or like the SoundGirls EQL directory?
I think I am on the directory, and I am also on LinkedIn. And I try to keep that up to date, but that's much more of a just like have my resume existing on the internet thing. I haven't really used that as a social platform. Have any of you used it as a social platform?
A little bit here and there. I had a friend that he's a video tech, and he uses LinkedIn a lot to get video jobs like all around the country. So that's a thing I didn't know existed. But apparently a few people have contacted him via LinkedIn and offered him jobs.
Wow. Yeah. Very cool.
Something I've noticed is always being accessible on Facebook. I don't try to take random friend requests. However, when people message me, normally it's because they're a friend of a friend or somebody that I have interacted with on a gig and are like, hey, I have this other gig. So my Facebook is actually, well, I'm not super active on it. I don't really post very much. The stuff I do post, I try to keep either as friendly or as professional as I can. Like I don't post like if I'm going out to a friend's house very much or anything like that. I try to keep it as, since I've entered entertainment, I've tried to keep it as professional as possible when it comes to what other people can see what I'm doing.
That's a very good point you put up, because sometimes I am at fault for that. Like I sometimes forget that it's my business account and I shouldn't be putting up me having drinks and wine with my friends, but sometimes it happens. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I do try to keep the most part, because yeah, it is what people see, and you are trying to showcase your work, not your personal life. So yeah, definitely.
I'm sure there could be a whole discussion about that too, though, because you know how much people like to see like a little bit of your personal life and feel like they have a personal connection while still being business minded. And I mean, it's a whole thing.
There's a balance to that for sure. I know we had one question or a statement in the chat I wanted to address here real quick. Somebody was speaking about wanting to hire women as assistants and interns, but it's difficult in their specific region. That's why we have the SoundGirls EQL directory. It was made as a way for us to find women in our area that, do different things, your specific kinds of sound like theater, live sound, whatnot. You'll see that listed on everyone's profile. So if you are looking at hiring women or non-binary folks that have joined the EQL directory, you can go on there and check it out and see if there's anybody that's close to you that you can hire.
Yep, Carrie just posted the link in the chat.
Thanks, Gary.
And branching off of that, another question that we got is about the best way to market yourself as a freelancer. And along with that, if you do use some kind of social media platform, what do you think is best?
Yeah, so like I said, I use Instagram primarily. I make sure for every show that I do, that I'm taking great pictures, showcasing my speakers, the microphones that I used. I also try to take videos so everyone can, hear the sound as best as they can using an iPhone. And I make sure that I put in very detailed descriptions into the the captions, and just putting what I use, what speakers that I use, what microphones that I use. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I really try to focus on when I'm using my Instagram pages, is making sure that I get a picture and a video of every show. Sometimes it's really hard because you're in the show and you're there and you're trying to, you're mixing and you're doing this, but I always try to just take the 5 minutes to just record a video, take a picture of the soundboard, and just make it look good on Instagram so people know what they hire you for and what you bring to the table, basically.
Always have great portfolio pics. Always. Your portfolio is going to live with you for as long as you let it. Always take as many portfolio pictures as you can. And then, again, I don't really use Instagram that much. I barely understand it, if I'm honest. But Facebook, as much as I dislike the idea that what Facebook is as an entity, at the same time, it is probably, you post, hey, I'm free for this amount of weekends in this month. I've gotten work from that because people are like, oh, I mean, it's not a big job, but if you can come out for a day, can you? Sure. That's like been probably one of the best ways, just saying, hey, I'm actually just putting out there that I'm actually available for this time frame, but I do have gigs coming up.
Yeah, there are a lot
I
of
find
videographers
myself
out there. Oh, sorry, Carolyn.
Oh, you're fine. I was just going to say that I find myself like, especially because I travel for work often, like when I get back in town, I always make sure to like reach out to everyone who's hired me in the past and be like, hey, just so you know, I'm in town. If you need me, just let me know. And just being accessible and available and like keeping yourself in people's minds, I think is really crucial to like continue to get work.
So I think we're going to move on to talking a little bit about finances. So as far as keeping your finances, like keeping track of everything, like how do you keep it organized? Do you use an accountant? Do you write everything down? Do you do your taxes yourself? How do you go about recording everything as a freelancer?
I think I'll start. Owning my own sound company it's definitely different because it's just a lot more. Now that I'm learning, it's a lot of stuff that I need to keep record of. So when I do invoices, I use PayPal. It took me a while to get to PayPal because I really didn't know what to even use as an invoice. I think I used some like weird software system before that only allowed me like 10 invoices. And then they were like, oh, you need to sign up now for the full subscription. And I was like, but then I found my way to PayPal and realized how amazing it is. And so PayPal is really a big thing for me. They keep all my invoices. They put in, I'm able to save like my speaker. So they'll save the speaker for me and they'll save how much I charge the speaker for. And so next time I have to go and do an invoice, I could just click, click, click. I don't gotta type everything in. Taxes so far, because I'm 2 years in, and unfortunately because of this pandemic, I haven't made enough yet to do taxes. So I haven't had that one yet, but I am looking into getting an accountant soon, because when that does come up, and I'm hoping within the next year, that's something that I'm definitely going to look into, having my own business. I don't want to really mess anything up. So looking to get into an accountant as early as possible. But yes, as far as that, and then I not only keep my stuff on PayPal, I also will drag it out as a PDF, and I'll keep it as a folder. So I'll keep my invoices for shows in one folder, invoices and receipts for cables in another one, estimates in another folder. So yeah, that's pretty much, everything is just organized into their separate, folders that need to be. But PayPal was definitely a huge one for me when it came to invoices and receipts like that.
Don't be afraid to get an accountant. Even if you're not doing a lot of freelancing, even if you just work in multiple venues and you have things like union dues or tools or conferences that you've spent money investing in yourself and your education, even if you have to buy a computer or gear, certain things like computers, you can deduct over, I think, a 2 or 3 year period. You can spread it out. And it, she'll pay some money up front, but it'll save you so much money in the long run. It's definitely a smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And Deb, real quick, we did have somebody ask in the chat if we could touch upon the differences between union jobs and freelance gigs.
Yeah. When I was your age, back in my day, I was doing both, and you have some good non-union venues out there. You have some places that will hire you for freelance and take care of you and make sure you're in a safe work environment and things like that. This pandemic alone has really shown me how much of a safety net my union is. The thing that people don't understand about like unions like IATSE is they don't create the work, they just organize the work. So they don't understand why everybody can't just join and okay, I've got work. And when they don't have a lot of seniority, if they're a seniority-based local like Local 3, why they're not getting enough work when they start out. But I'd say there's a lot of differences. From a design standpoint, if you're a member of USA, United Scenic Artists, which is under the IATSE umbrella for lighting designers, sound designers, costume designers, one of the big things that I didn't know about until years into it was you have like insurance, contractors insurance. And I had been designing freelance stuff for universities and small theaters for years. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I was doing something at Pitt, like I had done a million times for the dance ensemble. And they said, oh, well, the university needs your contractor's insurance. And I was like, I don't have contractor's insurance. How many of you guys have contractor's insurance? It's like, okay, Liz does. Like insuring yourself for up to $100,000 of liability or whatever. It wasn't, because I was teaching and working off the IATSE list and maybe only doing like $10,000, $20,000 worth of design work a year at most. Contractor's insurance was pretty pricey. If you're a member of USA, you have that through USA. If you're a member of IATSE, you have, hopefully, like each local is different. So that's also confusing. Think of different locals as different local governments, like your municipality might be different than somebody else's township underneath all of that. But at some point, most of them have pension plans and some kind of health care, if only eye and dental, these kind of things that can help you as you, progress through your adulting through life, start buying houses, having families, worrying about things like that. I'm getting really long-winded, I know.
No, it's interesting to hear what you have to say. I mean, but the differences between, union work and picking up a freelance gig here and there too, like it just, I would say, like, is there anything specifically like financially about that is strikingly different? Like, is it 1099 versus W-2?
Yes, I think if you're working through union contracts, well, it's different for design versus working for labor. If you're working for a labor union like IATSE, you're paying into unemployment, or your employers are. So when you're out of work, you have that safety net that you don't have if you're being 1099. If you get hurt, unless you sue a company that, if they're at fault. But if you get hurt on the job, and our jobs are dangerous, and most people I know have had some kind of injury at some point or another. If you get hurt on a union job, there's disability, there's different funds. The actors fund is a whole nother thing. In our industry, you should know about all of these things. Behind the scenes is another one, I think, for mental health, that the app for the ETC lighting boards, pays into that. These are things that you should know about to be able to tap into, especially for times like these, to help you. Or if you have, something catastrophic happen that you need some kind of financial help. Am I answering the question, Laura? I'm not sure.
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much.
That, I don't want to say that the only way to go is a union way, or the only way to go is a freelance way. I found that I had a lot more artistic freedom being a woman, and being not having all the networking and stuff, working through freelance jobs, than I did through the bigger theaters, at least when I was younger. So, I mean, I think a combination of those things, you need to be aware of what unions and organizations, not just unions, but organizations like USITT, like your organization, SoundGirls, what they can do for you in terms of security, in terms of network, in terms of support, both concrete support and intellectual support, if that makes sense. I talked earlier about direction. I did not have direction. I remember asking in my graduate school, how do I market myself? Some of these questions you guys are asking each other and asking a panel. Nobody really had answers for me. So I kind of meandered, and, kind of the current just took me. Mm-hmm. So the more awareness you have of what these different paths can bring for you, the better off you're going to be. And the more you have an idea of where you want to be, the better off you're going to be, if that's helpful, I guess.
I just wanted to take a quick second for those who may not know. When we say 1099, it's like that's technically freelance work where your company or whoever's hiring you is not taking out taxes that you have to pay back during tax season. And I also just wanted to say that as a freelancer, I'm strictly freelance. I work for a lot of different people, and I pay for my own health insurance monthly, which is very costly. And I'd say that's one of the biggest differences between being a freelancer and being employed, even part-time or full-time or whatever. I have to insure myself. If I get hurt on the job, that's my responsibility, as opposed to being hired by a company and they're taking out taxes and making sure that they're paying if you do get hurt on the job. Mm-hmm. So I think the next thing, like a big question that we got that I think is really important to touch on, is deciding your rate, which obviously, I mean, even on this panel, we all have different careers, different lines of work. But, overall, how would you say that you determine your rate? Like, is it based primarily on time, or is it based primarily on the certain type of work that you're doing or who you're doing it for? So if you have anything to add on that.
Actually, I was looking at that and I thought about it because I have a very interesting situation where I'm also, while I'm an entertainment electrician, I mainly stick to lights if I can help it because, dear God, they're just better. Not better, not better. I don't mean better. I mean just easier for me to understand. Sorry. When it comes to lighting, I have a specific rate depending on what I'm being asked to do. So if I'm an entertainment, just as a general electrician, I have a specific rate for that based on the experience needed for the work and based on the experience I have going in. Because my rate for when I was still in college is different than the rate I have now. Then there's also going into the fact that I do work as a carpenter. My rate as a carpenter is significantly lower than my rate as an electrician because my experience as a carpenter, while it's what I started as, is much less. At like certain joints that I was learning, like I should have paid more attention to in stagecraft. And I started doing just more carpentry work because of the pandemic and whatnot. My rates have changed for that as well. So a lot of it I've noticed for myself and for people that I've worked with is based on the experience needed to do the job rather than what the job entails. But it's almost always per hour.
Yeah, so rates is something that I've struggled with a lot going into having my own sound company because I knew that I was going to start off working with local artists who also didn't have a lot of money, so I would oftentimes take gigs for God, low, just so low. Like, and I ended up doing so much work and like it just I was like, "Oh, this is not it." Like I know I have the experience and I'm working the chunk of the time I'm the only person working when shows are happening. So that's something I struggled with a lot. And I had went to a kind of like another panel type event, and I wasn't a panel, I was listening. I was a listener, and they basically were like, just don't be afraid to bump up your price. Somebody out there will pay for it. Like, you know, like, so I was like, okay, well, let me start. So I also was working with a sound company near my house, and he was like a one man gang. I mean, he had his workers. I was one of them. But you know, a lot of the show, just his shows he did himself, and he was a larger. He owned like a whole warehouse and stuff. And you know, he was telling me his pricing because he wanted to help me grow my business as well. And he told me his pricing. He'll be like, okay, how much do you think those speakers are worth? And then I would tell him, and then he'd be like, no, charge this. So a lot of my pricing, I did get help on from, again, my mentor. That's why I'm like, mentors are super important. But like Liz too, I also charge an hourly rate too. So while I'm charging for equipment, I also charge for an hourly rate. It's pretty, now I have it set to where it's set because of the experience I have, just like Liz said, where before I probably wouldn't have, I would have just charged the equipment and I wouldn't even charge hourly. Now I'm like, no, this is I'm experienced now. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm going to work and sweat hard during the show. So this is my hourly rate as well. So yeah, that was one thing I struggled with. But now, no, you know your worth. Know your worth, and don't be afraid to tell people that's what you're worth. And you might lose a show or two along the way, but trust me, there will be people out there that are, you know, will see your worth and will be willing to pay for that.
Have you thought about a day rate or a half day rate? Because that's the opportunity cost of, you take this job where they only need you for 2-3 hours. That means you can't take this other job that same day where they need you 8 hours. And do you include travel and things like that with your time, or no? That was a question for you, Devyn, I guess.
Yeah, so I don't do a day rate. If I have if I have two shows the same day and one's 4 hours, one's 8, I honestly, I'll try to find somebody who can work the 4 hour show while I work the 8. But if it had to be me choosing between the two, I would choose the 8 hour. I make more money with. Traveling, I only do the tri-state, and I've only had shows in Jersey, and I've had a couple in New York. The New York shows is the ones that I have them pay for the tolls and the gas and the mileage. The ones in Jersey, they're usually about 30 minutes away, so I don't really include that. I know I should. And yeah, and if I've had shows too where there are 30 minutes away, but I need, like, most of the time I can fit everything into my car. I've had to rent trucks out because I need bigger equipment for the shows, and that also I always charge them for the truck. I don't come out of pocket for that as well. So it's really like it's like a learning thing. I add on as I go and as I learn. Like sometimes I used to do shows in New York and I wouldn't even charge them for the toll. And then I'm like, no, I have to charge for this toll. You know, it's $15 and the mileage getting in and the gas. So yeah, so that's basically where I am with that.
You know, if you don't charge them a per diem for things like your meals and things like that, when you're working those New York shows and stuff, when you get an accountant, you know, those things are tax deductible. You might already know that. Your meals and your, you know, a lot of things like that. I have friends and a husband in the movie industry, and I know when he works out of town, it's like the hotel, the meals, everything figures in there. And coming back to the whole union question that you had, Laura, that was a big eye opener for me, you know, those kind of things over the past couple decades, because I was doing so much freelance where I was just pouring myself into it and ending up spending so much just to be there and do the job and then paying taxes, like you said, on top of it, Carolyn. One thing, you know, when you're in like a union negotiated contract, first of all, you know that as a woman, you're getting paid the same as the guy working next to you. That's a huge relief. On the other hand, there's a lot less women in the unions. It's been a hard thing to get your foot in the door, right? But when you're there, you know that you're getting paid. You're not getting 73 cents on the dollar. You're getting what they get, dollar for dollar. It's something that's hard to think about as a freelancer. I think we always undersell ourselves, but don't undersell yourself, you know. It's not just the hours you put in and the equipment that you're bringing, it's also the opportunity. So a day rate, I don't know with sound, you know, you guys are more familiar with the freelancing with sound, but I know with freelancing with a lot of other things, day rate's really common because you're giving that day. You can't be two places at once. And what was the other thing? Contracts, you know, do you get paid up front? Do you get paid when the gig is over? That's questions for you guys, probably for Devyn, because you do so many small time frame gigs, but big gigs. I know a USA designer contract for a sound designer in a theater or a lighting designer, you get paid a third of your money when you agree to the contract, another third when you step foot in the theater, and the final third when the show is over. Did you guys know that? So don't front somebody else's show with your money, if that makes sense. And that I might be, you know, speaking out of turn, but I know that that's a common mistake people make as so far as designers go.
Yeah, that was a hard lesson learned. I wasn't charging any, like you said, any like pay me the deposit before I get there, and then maybe the other half after. I would just go to these shows and would be like, okay, pay me after the show is done. But I learned that a lot of these people would start canceling shows on me a week out, and now I said no to all these other shows that were getting offered to me, and now I got this show canceled, and now I'm without a work that day because the other people who were asking me for sound, they already found somebody else. So that definitely became a huge thing where I need at least 50% of the payment before I even like 2 weeks in advance before I even get there, and then once I get there at the end of the show, I need the rest of the payment. And then I also implemented that if in the case the person does not come with the payment on time, I add a 7% interest fee every week. So 7% added fee extra every week that they don't pay me. That's included into the contract and the terms and conditions. So yeah, that's something I also learned the hard way where I need to ask for this down on non-refundable, because if they cancel on me, I keep that 50% because you canceled on me, you know. So and I lost shows that could have potentially I could have went and worked. So that was definitely a huge thing for me that I had learned. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because yeah, it was getting very exhausting to keep losing these shows and other shows that would have actually gone through, because people are careless and just don't care about if you get paid or not. It's their gig, it's their show. So yeah.
Did you have like a lawyer or anything write up those contracts for you?
No, so I actually I didn't have a lawyer write up these contracts for me. I literally just Googled them, like contracts for whatever the case. And yeah, I just looked them over myself and just had them signed. I in my research of owning my own sound company, that was one of the questions I asked Google and said, do I need a lawyer to drop a contract? And they said, no. I mean, it is good if you do, but obviously I was not trying to pay a lawyer just to look up these contracts. So Google told me, no, here are some free contracts that you could just fill in the blanks and send off on your way. So no, I eventually, once I do have enough money to do so, I definitely will be having my own lawyers, on hand to be looking over these things and making sure, that my wording is correct, because wording is everything on contracts. Yeah, so but no, as of now, no, I didn't. You can just find templates on Google and just tweak them to your standards.
Okay.
And when you're working with bigger companies, usually they'll send you a contract. My experience has been a little bit different. I do, when I'm engineering, usually live charge a day rate. And then as a designer, it's a project rate. So usually start to finish. And they're often similar to the kind of contracts that Deb was talking about, where you get a certain percentage up front and then the rest of it after. Not always after the show closes. Sometimes it's when your work is delivered. So that would be opening night rather than closing night. But totally lost my train of thought there. Sorry. Yeah, so it's most of the time they send me a contract, so I don't have to worry about that legality of it. Obviously, you still have to look over the contract very well and make sure that it's all cool, but it's a little bit less pressure than having to write one yourself. So it's a little bit of a plus.
I will actually, Angela, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I totally forgot my project fee, because I'm a draftsman as well. And I charge a fee upfront before I even start drafting for the amount of time that I'm going to be drafting. And then I charge, like it's a 2-part fee, like the 50%, as you were saying. So if I'm drafting like a small show, my average rate total is anywhere between $300 and $500, give or take, depending on what they're asking. If they're asking for 3D drafting and renderings to go with this, that's a whole other ballgame. And that's asking a lot of my computer as well. So into all of that, I actually have a breakdown of everything that I'm charging for. So I'll be charging for the program that I'm using, which is usually Vectorworks, which is not cheap. I'll be charging for the computer that I'm using, everything on top of that, just because I want to make sure that I'm paid for the amount of work that I'm going to be doing. And then if they're like, well, we're no longer, the show got canceled, it got rescheduled, we're no longer in that venue, well, all of the drafting I just did now nixed. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't give you, like, it's a non-refundable fee that I charge because of that, specifically for projects, specifically for drafting. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was like, oh, wait, there it is.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like, for me, if I don't get that 50% non-refundable upfront, I am not doing your show. Like, that's it. If somebody else comes up and is like, I want you for the same date that you wanted me, and they give me that 50% on the spot, now I'm booked. Because yeah, I've had it just goes along with knowing your worth. Like, don't be afraid to lose a show. There'll be more shows that you'll get, but losing that show and losing the money is and when you had other opportunities, that's where it's like, okay, so yeah, definitely charge that non-refundable. That's all I have to say, really.
Yeah, and I just want to throw in there that, like, if you're not sending out a contract, or you're not receiving a contract for a freelance gig, you need to make sure that at the very least that, like, you're sending an email saying, is this like making sure how much you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, making sure how much work is involved, and getting all that in writing so that if something were to happen, if you didn't get paid, at least you have the trail of emails to prove that you were supposed to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So for the last topic, we just wanted to touch a little bit on mental health, just because I feel like that's a pretty important part of freelancing. I mean, I know myself, I'm a workaholic. So sometimes I'm like taking too many gigs and I'm constantly communicating with people. I'm on the phone and mixing a show at the same time, like you have to kind of know where to draw a line. And we got some questions about just like handling the stress of being a freelancer. And also if you have any tips on getting over the fear of freelancing, because I know that can be a little bit intimidating to people. If you guys have any word on that.
Well, with this pandemic happening in the beginning, and still a little bit now, I was really nervous. I was really scared. My sound company is still new. I would say, great, did I just spend all my money and now it's about to go out the door? A lot of so it was a lot of like beating myself up and feeling very down. But I talk a lot. I talk a lot to my friends and to my boyfriend, and I express my feelings. So that's a huge one for me for mental health. Just keep expressing yourself. Don't bottle it up. Say what's on your mind. State your fears. And the people who are around you, who care about you, will come through and say, don't worry about it. It's just this one moment in time. I also started journaling a lot, and realized like that was a big help for me. Just getting out all my fears and like it's gonna be okay. Talking to myself, reminding myself it's gonna be fine. Like everything's gonna get back to normal very soon. You just gotta push through and hold on. And I actually just started meditating. Meditating is a huge one for me. Making sure, not kind of silencing the thoughts, but giving myself that and allowing myself that break in time, the 10 minutes that I take to meditate every day, just giving myself that calm serenity was definitely a huge help for me. I tried yoga for a bit. I'm lazy, so that didn't stick, but it also was it was a pretty good experience, and I would definitely go back into doing it again if I stopped being so lazy. But yeah, journaling, talking with friends and family, and meditating were the top three for my mental health. Just taking the time to just slow down, really slow down, and talk to myself, really.
I think during normal times now too, but especially whenever you're working, prioritizing sleep is one of the best things you can do for yourself. I know it's really, really hard when we're all working so much, but it's really, you're so much better mentally, emotionally, and then also better at your work whenever you're rested. So that's something that I really try to do as much as I can. And obviously now when everyone is really stressed out at home, sometimes it's not the easiest to sleep, but it helps. And I also find that, having a hobby that is completely unrelated to work is like the healthiest thing. Like just, it could be anything. About a year ago, I took up pottery and I'm obsessed with it, and it's totally random and it's great. They're just like, I think it's important to like expand your mind outside of your career. So
I agree with Angela. Oh my God, having a hobby that has nothing. Okay, I'm a lighting nerd. I don't know if anybody's been seeing this like mini thing going on in the background, but like I geek out about lights. Just residential entertainment, it doesn't matter. I love them. They're sweet and lovely. But I had to find something that I enjoyed doing, not that I was forcing myself to do, that I actually enjoyed doing, that had nothing to do with it. Because it's just, speaking in the pandemic, the first month and a half, ETC was offering all these free classes. You wanted to be involved, but after that, and you're still not working, it starts to get kind of sad. Like it just made me miss work more, and it got to the point of frustrating. So I took crocheting up again, And that has been like, oh my God, mindless. I can just like mess with my hands still. And I've done a couple patterns that Deb has sent me when I was in college that I just never had time to do. I also started wood burning, which I didn't know I was even gonna like or be good at, because I used to be an artist. I used to be an art major when I was in high school and partially into college. And I just forgot what that was like for a really long time, to create something that had absolutely nothing with turning on and off. And it was probably the most restful my mind has ever been, is actually when I've been smelling burnt pine. Great. It's like already a relaxing feeling, because it feels like you're at a fire, which is not good. Don't do that. But at the same time, it's just really nice to see. And I've started doing that, and even carving a little bit, which I didn't even know, like, oh, hey, let's do some wood things. And I was like, I like wood. Okay, sure.
I I gotta say that I think before the pandemic, I think the stress that many people like in the entertainment industry were feeling, the stress that they were feeling was more about being overworked and not knowing how to say no. So when work kind of stopped, it was cold turkey from working all the time to no work, which was a huge shock. But my brain was still wired to be working and multitasking and doing all these things at once. I think it was maybe 2 months in before I could sit down with a novel and actually focus on reading something that wasn't a textbook or technology or something like that, because that's kind of where I was with overworking, doing professor academia things. But I think, I don't know if I speak for myself, but I don't know if anybody else feels this way. Having the downtime takes you to a different place, a quieter place of introspection. I know there's a lot of stories out in the news about this too, that we can't just go back to that crazy pressure, never having a life, always going from show to show, never having downtime, never knowing how to say no. That's part of it, but also having time for reflection as an artist, not just the work part of it, but the art part of it, for those of you who are designing and creating things, or musicians. It's been kind of a journey, going through this and being forced to confront those parts of yourself, or rediscover those parts of yourself, is maybe a better way to put it. So I don't know if anybody asked that question, like, where are we going from here, because of all the things that are going on in the world right now and changing our daily lives. I guess that's a question. Am I allowed to ask a question?
That actually is one of the questions, so you're welcome to expand on that more.
Yeah, going back to what Angela said and a little bit about what Deb said about, making time to sleep and knowing how to say no. That when, things were normal, I had to do that a couple times. Like I mentioned before, I've done shows for New York Fashion Week, and, it's an amazing experience. And it's also a little demeaning. You work for these people, for the celebrities, and and it's, you work for 15 hours a day for 3 days, setting up all this sound equipment and all these, and you have people setting up the sounds and I mean the lighting, the videos, even people just displays, like people had to make whole gardens, and it's hard work. And yeah, I learned a lot. But when it came time for the show, first of all, the actual show is literally like 10 minutes long, and you spend like 15-hour days for 3 days for this 10-minute show. So that in itself, I was like, okay. And then once you're there, you're around these celebrities, and these people like celebrities, and it was very demeaning. And it kind of really, my mental health suffered because of that. I went home like completely drained and just felt super unappreciated. When it came time for the next season of Fashion Week, I actually ended up saying no because I just didn't want to feel that way anymore. So learning how to say no is definitely a huge thing in my book, because mental health is very important. Like you can't keep doing shows if you don't have great mental health. You know, you're gonna go crazy before you even get a chance to keep working. So yeah, saying no is definitely a big thing. Learning how to do.
One of the things that I've noticed recently too is instead, when you're running from job to job to job at this breakneck speed, one of the things that we miss is just taking a moment to reflect on the work you just did and be excited about it and share it with people and like sit in that for a minute before you move to the next thing. It's something that I have not done nearly enough. And like, as we have slowed ourselves down, like Deb was saying, it's something that I've been thinking about all the shows of the past year-ish. And like, wow, that was really great. And I miss all these people that I used to just run into that I can't anymore and stuff. But I think it's really important to like, just take a moment and be proud of yourself for what you just made.
I would agree with that. I didn't until this year, which didn't work out as way that I wanted. Until this year, I actually didn't do that. I absolutely hated the start of a show because it always meant it was going to end. And the ending of a show was usually my favorite part because it was the beginning of something new. And I never really appreciated the show I was working on. I was always on, like, my brain literally was on the next show. Also because that's what my position demanded of me. Or like the fact that I didn't say no to certain jobs demanded of me, is I needed to be able to focus on 3 different projects at once because, oh God, they're opening 1 week after each other. So you didn't even get to sit. I wouldn't even stay for opening nights because I would think to myself, okay, if I go home, I'm going to be able to sleep. And if I sleep, then tomorrow I can start working on this. And I saw an opening night once last year and only twice this year. And for lack of normal. And I have to say, those were probably the best nights that I ever worked on a show. Despite having to work that day and then get changed and do the whole, oh God, I gotta get gussied up for this nonsense. I got to see what I did and see it used in action and be like, oh my God, wait, that actually did look good. Holy crap. We did it. We did a thing. And we did a Midsummer Night's Dream I did it with the light designer Keith True for Picked. And it actually, 1, it did so well. And 2, I was there opening night and I made sure to bring somebody who had not seen the show. And after working in it for Tech Week every night, to hear someone's genuine reactions next to me of somebody I knew, it was like, oh wait, this is good. This is funny. This is great. Oh my God, this looks beautiful. Oh, he noticed all these changes that we did. And it was just probably one of the best moments I've ever had, was that opening night in February. And it was February 14th, which made it even better. But that, and then also realizing I wasn't spending the time to do that with the people close to me who support what I do. Like I wasn't inviting my parents to Pittsburgh to come see a show opening. I wasn't inviting my friends or even my girlfriend at the time to come see a show with me because I was like, moving on, next project. And how much I missed out on that until February. So I definitely agree to appreciate what you've worked on because, oh my God, the people around you appreciate it so much more than you realize.
I think that's one of my favorite things about gigs is looking at the crowd when they see what's going on, you know, whether it's a rock concert or like some silly corporate gathering or a, you know, show for theater. Like there's just something super satisfying about being able to stand back and be like, I had a part in that. And I think it's a really healthy way to look at our job, just be like, this is what I have created, and, you know, just take a moment to appreciate that.
Totally. I just wanted to respond. Sarah said something that I think is really interesting. She said, I feel like learning to say no to gigs is really important, but you have to work those gigs and jobs to learn how to say no and to figure out what jobs you can't work without having a negative effect on your well-being. And I think that's totally true. I also think this sort of ties its way the whole way back to our discussion about rates and charging, because one thing that you can know ahead of time is whether you're going to be overwhelmed and you just physically don't have the time. Like you might not know the sort of, as a freelancer, you don't always know what working conditions you're going to walk into. You do know with a union job, you don't with a freelance job. You hope they're going to be good. They are often, sometimes they're not. But you know, you can get a sense of like, how busy am I? Can I take this on? And one thing that you can do if you're charging enough money is hire help. You can get someone to help you. You can farm out some piece of the project. And so that's just like something to consider. I don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah. So I think we answered actually quite a few guest questions by accident, which is cool. If anyone has last minute questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. But we're a little bit over time. So I think we might wrap it up. Laura, do you have anything you want to add?
Not really. I can't really think of too much that we haven't touched upon. Just like you said, if anybody has any last minute questions, we'll take them for the next couple minutes. But I do want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and joining us here. This is a first for our chapter. It's the first time we've hosted a webinar. So it was really cool just to see the turnout. And we're really excited to share all of our stories with you tonight.
Yeah. We have a question about a COVID liability waiver. I have never seen or heard of anything like that or applied it to any of my gigs. Have you guys?
No, but I definitely should. Actually, now that they mention it, that was a great question, because actually I might start doing that. I've seen restaurants actually start doing like 10% COVID surcharges. So, why not? You're in these spaces with all these different people, pretty close proximity. I'm using, people are using my microphones with their mouths on them. So yeah, that actually might be something I might be implementing now that, was mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I know at my gigs, we're buying all these extra wipes and masks and gloves and stuff to make sure everyone has PPE and that we're wiping off the mics in between. And so, I mean, that's worth a little bit of surcharge in itself, I think.
Yeah, they're even making like disposable mic covers now. Did you see those?
Mm-hmm.
Are they really? I haven't seen those yet.
Mm-hmm. You can just slip them on like a typical 58, but yeah, they're disposable. You take them off in between speakers so you don't have to deep clean the mics every time.
What are they made out of?
It's like this weird like mesh style material, but I'm sure it's not completely mesh so that things can't get through it. I haven't really noticed if it's made it like muffled sounding or not yet because I haven't had much of a chance to use them, but they are kind of neat.
That's interesting. Okay. I mean, I'm skeptical of a waiver. I wouldn't sign anyone else's COVID liability waiver. I think that that's weird for me to walk into a building and the employer say, hey, I want you to sign this because if you get COVID, it's not my fault. So I don't know where to fall on the other side of the spectrum, but I don't feel like I don't know, that makes me feel weird. Deb, you seem like you might have some thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know so much about the waivers. I have heard about them. I've heard of from my actors, equity, stage management people. There are stage management rules and guidelines for COVID that are really specific. My husband works movies and TV. He has been working a couple months now on a Netflix series, and they have very specific guidelines in place. If you're working within so many feet of a coworker, you need an N95. If you're kind of working on your own and aren't working with someone, you can have a surgical mask. They're not allowed to wear their own, cloth masks, and they get tested for COVID twice a week, everybody. And then the other thing they do is they are bringing in meals. Everything's catered. They don't want people going out to restaurants during the day and then bringing something back potentially. So I know about those kind of safeguards. Liability waivers, to me, that's like a whole nother thing. I mean, that's not really thinking about protecting people, that's protecting money, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know how you guys feel about all that.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, now that you said it, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, that's a big one. It's a big one. That's really something to sit down with.
So I think we have time for like maybe one more question from the chat. I see two here that are kind of similar. The first one is, can you identify a big step in your career that made you nervous and what made you decide to take that step or turn it down? And the other one was like, how do you know that you're ready to start getting freelancing gigs? Somebody looks like they're just starting out on their career and want to start, but they're kind of nervous about it.
For me, a big step that I took was, saying that I wanted to start my own sound company and then solidifying it by making it an LLC. And the reason why I made the decision to do such a big step was because I don't know, maybe people came in late, but I decided to because while I was freelancing, I wasn't. I was treated like an A2 who just ran cables. I would definitely, I'm very persistent. I was harassing people basically to show me the board and show me, things that I can eventually become an A1 on gigs. But, it just wasn't happening a lot of the time. I was working with companies that it was kind of based off seniority. So people who had been there for years, that's it. Like they were the A1s and that was it. And you were an A2, just run this cable and that was it. So I took the big step mostly out of frustration. Like I wanted to do my own thing and I wanted to be on the board mixing. And so yeah, that it was really my emotions that got me to take that big step. And as far as, how to get ready to start freelancing or getting gigs and being anxious, be anxious, but take action, be anxious, but take action. Don't be afraid, be afraid, but just do it. Like it's going to be worth it. And it's going to be, and it's going to be more than all right. You're going to be doing what you love. So yeah, just take action.
I would actually say that my big step in my career actually happened before my career got to start. I started at a small women's college in Sweetbriar College and walked into a theater building and just kind of never left. Because I walked into a light call at 10:30 at night because they were the only building open other than the engineering building. And you walk into a light call and they're like, hey, you're here for this? Great, go up to the grid. And you're like, huh, what? I did what? But the big step that actually happened is when I transferred to CalU and I was trying to balance doing so much for the CalU theater department and then also being an electrical engineering technology major, because I didn't switch majors until Deborra Peelor decided that I needed to sign up to be a major because I was doing enough work and should be credited for it. Because I wasn't even doing shows for credit. I was just doing it because I loved what I was doing. So what made me decide that was turning down an engineering internship that I had secured already before I'd even transferred to take a job that I had been offered at a conference for Cedar Point Park. And then the next year going to Santa Fe Opera as a general apprentice, a stage crew apprentice. Those two decisions kind of solidified, oh, I can do this for a living. And I just kind of I looked at that and was like, yep, nope, this is where I'm staying now. And I never turned back. I have thought about whether or not, especially during the pandemic, I would regret that. And believe it or not, I don't. I still love what I do, and I would prefer to do what I love than be stuck in a lab working on blueprints for the rest of my life. And trying to I still make circuits work. I just make them work for more fun things. So that's kind of how I viewed it as a trade-off, as I'm still using what I've learned. I'm just applying it in a different setting. And then when it comes to getting started, I found it easiest to start on gigs with people I knew, or at least one other person I knew. I always felt better being not being the only person, I guess, not being my own person. But at the same time, starting on a gig that when I did finally take the step of taking a gig where I didn't know anybody there, I had more fun because I didn't reserve myself and my own personality, because I was like, yep, nope, these are my lights now. Okay, bye. And just kept kind of, I don't know, interacting with people and let my own personality shine through. And I actually made a lot of friends doing that, which helped me get into freelancing a bit more.
I'm gonna share a quick bit about something that I regret not doing in hopes that you guys will not make the mistake of not taking the leap. Several years ago, I was in LA and I happened through a friend into a situation where I met a studio owner of a smaller but prominent studio who told me like, oh yeah, I'm going to be needing someone soon. And it's going to be just, like, basically like, I don't have a full-time job for you. I don't even really have a part-time job for you, but I will call you if you're going to be here. And I could have like made that leap and moved across the country and done the thing and done the same thing that I'm doing here, which is like hustle and pick up gigs. And that would have been one of them. And in retrospect, it probably would have been a smart thing to make that leap. So I guess the point is to like, don't let your fears hold you back. And I have always found every time a show ends and I panic and I'm like, I'm never going to work again. It's over. Everything is awful. I know you've had that post-show crash. It happens. It's real. Something else always comes up. There's always more work. So just be bold.
Yeah, adding on to that, I mean, stepping out of your comfort zone is necessary for you to, do bigger and better things. So, if you're nervous, don't let that hold you back. I mean, just turn it into excitement. We used to always say that about, performing as a musician. You got to turn that nervous energy into exciting energy, and just take the leap. If you're scared, I mean, that can work for you.
Yeah, I think we had a professor at college that gave us a lecture one time about, anytime you start into the live sound business, like it's just going to be scary. And if you're not scared, then you're not challenging yourself.
Yep.
So that little, like, it was one of our music tech professors, Greg Davis, who's an awesome human being. And he said that to me. And I've honestly always said yes to most gigs and most things I've tried to do, not because like I may not have known entirely what I was doing coming in, but that gig got me out of my comfort zone and made me into a better engineer, into a better lighting designer, what have you, because I took that leap of faith and just went and did it,
Yep. So I think that's all of our questions. So thank you so much to our panelists. This was really, really cool. I really appreciate you all taking your time to do this, to educate other people.
Thank you guys for inviting us. It was awesome. Did not expect it. I was like, SoundGirls was to me? So I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much for inviting me.
We appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been so fun. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to everybody that joined us tonight. It's been great having a nice little crowd here asking questions and participating. Good stuff.